Now, from WYDC TV, this is Big Fox News at 10.
Good evening, I'm Anna Manuel. The indictment against former President Donald Trump has been unsealed. Now his attorneys are preparing their defense. Madeline Rivera has more.
Donald Trump's defense attorneys are combing through a 16-page indictment accusing the former president of falsifying business records. Judge Juan Merchan giving them until August 8th to file motions in the case. Prosecutors can then respond before the judge issues a ruling at the next hearing scheduled for later this year.
The first step as a defense attorney for Donald Trump is to look at the indictment, analyze the charges, and start thinking about how are we going to attack these charges even before trial.
Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg alleges Mr. Trump falsified records about hush money payments that were made to bury potential damaging stories before the 2016 election. Former Trump attorney Michael Cohen admitted to arranging one of those payments in coordination with the former president. Prosecutors say some reimbursement checks given to Cohen came directly from Trump's bank account.
That removes a layer or two of insulation between the former president and Cohen. What'll be really interesting is to see if there's documentary evidence and other evidence that tends to corroborate what the witnesses say.
Trump has denied the claims against him, and federal prosecutors previously declined to file charges. Legal experts expect Trump's attorneys to argue that the case is selective prosecution.
When you're going to bring on a charge against the former president of the United States, it needs to be solid, and I believe it was very underwhelming.
Mr. Trump faces separate investigations from the Justice Department and a Georgia grand jury. In New York, Madeline Rivera, Big Fox News.
April is National Donate Life Month, a time to consider the life-saving possibility of organ and tissue donation. Today, organ donor recipients shared their story with our Josh Feldberg.
This is Matthew. Matthew wasn't an organ donor, but Chris said this is something Matthew would have wanted to do.
To raise awareness for National Donate Life Month, Guthrie Clinics and the Center for Organ Recovery and Education, or CORE, held a flag-raising ceremony to recognize donors and recipients of organ transplants and the doctors that make these transplants possible. David Webster is a CORE volunteer who received an organ donation from Matthew 9 years ago.
Hearts come in maybe 1 out of 8 weeks, and I needed 1 week to get a heart. And the miracle came in. I had a gracious donor, and I've met the family, and it's really rewarding to meet the family. The family members found comfort and closure in knowing that in one simple way their son is living on.
Jack Wheeler's wife, Carol Fisher Wheeler, received a kidney transplant in 1993. Carol went on to live a happy life until her passing when she became a tissue donor herself.
Because Mike Fisher was a generous donor and gave Carol the gift of love, we were able to see our sons grow, get married, and provide us with 3 wonderful grandchildren, all thanks to Mike's gift of love.
In 2022, CORE saved 858 lives through organ donation. Nationally, there are still over 100,000 people that are waiting for a life-saving gift.
People die on the transplant wait list every day. The challenges are real, and we just encourage everybody to make that pledge for life. Go register, be an organ donor. It's very simple to do, less than a minute if you go online.
Josh Feldberg, Big Fox News, Sayre.
The Steuben Health Department recorded 0 opioid fatalities in their opioid update for the month of March. The update did report 20 overdose cases and 8 registered administrations of Narcan. Through the first quarter of the year, opioid overdoses are down 11% from last year. The Steuben Health Department is continuing to encourage residents to sign up for Narcan training courses. The TGI Fridays in Consumer Square has shut its doors without warning. The restaurant closed, giving employees no prior warning. A sign now taped to the door of the restaurant reads, "We regret to inform you that as of April 3rd, 2023, this Friday's location has closed. The location has been removed from Friday's website." Walmart says it expected about 2/3 of its stores to be serviced by automation by the end of 2026. The retail giant says it plans to move roughly 55% of packages processed through its fulfillment centers to automated facilities. Walmart hopes the changes will lead to less physical labor for its workers, reducing costs. The announcement comes after the company announced plans to lay off more than 2,000 warehouse workers. A pandemic-era law that helped uninsured Americans get health care coverage has come to an end. Now states have a little over a year to determine who still qualifies to be in the Medicaid program. Steve Harrigan has more on what you need to know.
Starting this week, millions of Americans are at risk of losing their Medicaid coverage. During the pandemic, states were prohibited from kicking people off the low-income health insurance program. But after a 3-year pause, those rules have been lifted.
An additional about 20 million people gained coverage on Medicaid through Medicaid during the past 3 years. And we estimate that about 15 million people may lose coverage.
The pandemic-era declaration ends on May 11th, but states can start the process now and have up to 14 months to remove people who don't qualify. But experts say the process could affect those who are still eligible too.
Many people will be disenrolled even though they remain eligible simply because they face administrative barriers with completing the renewal process. Maybe they don't get the notice in the mail. Maybe they get it, but it's not in a language they understand.
States will be sending out renewal notices to people whose eligibility will have to be determined, and they will have at least 30 days to respond to the request. Each state will have a slightly different process, but in general, they will want updates on things like income, address, and number of dependents. The information will come through the regular channels by mail, phone, email, or by website for individuals who have set up online Medicaid accounts.
Don't ignore it. When you get that notice from the state, open it and take action.
Healthcare advocates say it's critical to reach out to your local Medicaid office. In Atlanta, Steve Harrigan, Fox News.
We have your complete forecast still ahead. Plus, we'll hear from the 4 astronauts who are preparing to orbit the moon next year. Stay with us.
Here's your local stock market update from Big Fox. Now, your Twin Tiers forecast from Big Fox.
As we continue to hold along a stationary front into our Wednesday forecast, it did bring some limiting factors to bring widespread severe weather to the region, but still noting that we could have some thunderstorms rumble on through the overnight will be a possibility, but we are tracking some changes ahead. Now, make sure to keep the rain jacket and umbrella on hand as we'll talk some lingering showers as we roll into our Thursday forecast. The system taking a bit to get out of the area and bring the changes for the region. Now, pretty minor accumulations, only maybe a few hundredths of an inch possible there, so not going to be a soaking forecast, but changes will continue to push on. We'll note that throughout the day we'll be tracking temperatures on a cooling trend, and then into Friday we'll actually see a strengthening northwesterly wind as we're still currently under a southwesterly wind. We're keeping our overnight temperatures into the 60s where we topped off into the 70s today, but with that strengthening wind out of the northwest on Friday, it's going to keep us on the cooler side. Now, not cold, but a chilly, more of a early spring-like feel. So you might want a light layer, but we can see that by the weekend forecast, there are going to be some big improvements as that spring sunshine and a return to some southerly winds will quickly push its way in, making us potentially feel more like spring by that Easter Sunday. So looking as we roll into our Thursday forecast, maybe find a rumble of thunder, but mainly just some isolated showers through the morning hours, potentially lingering into the early afternoon. We start to know that a frontal system passage has occurred as we're watching temperatures fall as we head into the afternoon, where our warmest temperature of the day is actually occurring probably just around about midnight into those early morning hours, and then we'll drop into those 50s as we step into the afternoon, and then continue to fall all the way down into the 30s as we head into Friday morning. So a bit of a chill, but note that our average low is 30 degrees still, so it's not below average, but it is on the cooler side, especially with the moisture within the atmosphere. It is going to feel with a bit of a chill in the air with that northwesterly wind. Northwesterly wind's not going to be gusty, but it'll be strong enough to continue to influence this cooler weather pattern, holding temperatures into the 40s and the 50s. 52 into Elmira, Wayland around about 45 degrees, 50 into Westfield, Mansfield around about 52 degrees. So again, trending a few degrees below average, a little bit of a chill, but we will return to that bright blue sky. And that bright blue sky continues into the weekend, bringing us a warming trend. But we don't only have a warming trend into the weekend, but the extended forecast has us underneath these warmer than average conditions. This deep maroon gives us a big likelihood of having well above average temperatures into that April 11th through 17th or 15th forecast, which is within our 7-day, which we can see that even by Easter Sunday, we're back up into the 60s. And then next week, we'll have the potential to be back up into the 70s as we pair it up with a fairly quiet weather pattern.